is it hot outside near you? Are you thinking to yourself, why the fuck is it so goddamn hot? Well, the answer is your parents, assuming like you're under the age of 40 or 50, I guess, and their entire generation are a bunch of fucked up motherfuckers. That's the reason. And now you have to deal with, Earth sees third straight hottest day on the record, though it's unofficial. Oh. Everything's fine. It's unofficial. Don't worry, guys. It's unofficial. Fucking pop-ups. This is from CBS. Earth's average temperature remained at a record high Wednesday after 2 days in which the planet reached unofficial records. Don't worry, guys. It's unofficial. Let's cope. It's the latest marker in a series of climate change-driven extremes. The average global temperature was 62.9 degrees, according to the University of Maine's Climate Reanalyzer, a tool that uses satellite data and computer simulations to measure the world's condition, that matched a record set Tuesday and came after a previous record of 62.6 on Monday. But don't worry, guys. Don't believe your lying eyes. These motherfuckers, Democrats, Republicans, independents, are still going around there pretending climate change isn't real. Don't believe your lying eyes. You see something, that means it can't be true. If it's hot outside, well, it's just an anomaly. We've just had 20 anomalies every year in a row. It's just an anomaly. It's a once-in-a-century heat wave every year. Every week is a once-in-a-century heat wave. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry, guys. Woo! Climate change ain't real, everybody. Woo! It's once in a century. Every other day. Dumb motherfuckers. Not only that, but last month was the world's hottest June since records have been kept. The European Union's climate monitoring service said, according to Agence France Presse, the month was the warmest June globally, exceeding June 2019, the previous record, by a substantial margin. The EU Monitor said in a statement from its C3S Climate Union. Isn't that a little interesting? But don't worry, guys. It's all a coincidence. It's all a coincidence. You know, one of the biggest lies, and generally speaking, I hate being lied to. I hate when motherfuckers are trying to deceive me, right? But one of the biggest lies that I think we're all taught from a young age is that the adults are adults. Like, there's some magical property, like when you turn 18, or when you turn 26, or when you have your first kid, or when you get your first, like, some magical moment when people turn from toddlers and children into the magical adults in the room that have everyone's best interest in mind. This is one of the biggest lies they teach you as a kid. And then you keep getting older. And then you become 18 and you go, I don't feel any different. And then you become 26. Your brain's done developing now. I don't feel any different. And then you realize that everyone in the world has that same, you know, they feel it. What I'm saying is, our adults in the room are actually toddlers. They're actually a bunch of kids, mentally speaking. Emotionally speaking. Okay? Now, we live in a traumatized country. I'm going to go on a little sidebar, but bear with me. Trauma in this country is normalized. It's so normalized that when you tell people you have trauma, they'll tell you it's not trauma because they went through the same thing. You ever see this? Well, my parents used to beat me too, and I don't wallow in it. Sure about that, Jack? When people get traumatized, what happens to the brain? When someone is traumatized, parts of the brain freeze, especially emotional development. It freezes, right? If you were a young child and you were beaten senseless by your parents when you were 5, 6 years old, right? Parts of your emotional development get stuck at 5 or 6 years old. That's what happens. That's one of the side effects of trauma. Now, does that mean it's unhealable? No. Obviously, you can heal trauma by working through it. By talking to that 5-year-old self inside of you and telling them it's okay. Telling them, there was no other option. But they're better now. Everything will be fine. Because your 5-year-old self doesn't know that your 20-year-old self or your 25-year-old self can escape the torture in hell. Right? But most people don't even know that the 5-year-old self or whatever, 10-year-old, everyone gets traumatized at a different age. They don't know that that's inside of them. Right? And what happens is, this is terminology that people use with DID. Is the terminology of different personalities fronting. Fronting. What does that mean? Well, that means a person can have multiple personalities inside of them, but one of them is, taking control, if you will, of the day-to-day. Who's interacting with the people in the physical world, right? But what most people don't understand is when they become emotional, that 5-year-old inside of them, that 14-year-old that inside of them, whoever it is, they start fronting. You ever see adults just melt the fuck down over, basic shit? You ever see this happen? Adults just start screaming and hollering over shit that doesn't matter? When that happens, right, what's going on in the brain is they were traumatized as a kid. Their emotional development in a certain spot froze at a certain age. When that emotional circuit is triggered in the brain, that 10-year-old or whatever inside of them starts fronting. They take over. They start leading the charge. And that's why you see adults have temper tantrums. Because they're literally, and again, I say this with all due respect, they're literally 10 years old. Can you really be mad at a 9-year-old for crying and hollering like a baby? Can you really? I mean, they're 9 years old. I mean, shit happens, right? But when someone is 7 years old and they have a temper tantrum and their parents beat them as a response, what they realize is they cannot express their true feelings, and that's what freezes their emotional development. And then they become adults, and then they get to be the ones who beat their children, and the cycles of abuse continue. Now, why am I talking about this when it comes to climate change? Right? How the fuck did I get here? Well, I got here because, again, the adults in the room are actually babies. They're actually little kids. And when you understand that your grandma is a 6-year-old and that your fucking stepdad is 9 years old, when you really start to understand this, right? When people make decisions based on emotions that stopped developing when they were a child, the fact that we let climate change get this far makes a lot more sense. Because the adults in the room, they're not adults. They're adults in age only. So what are we going to do about it? I don't know. Probably nothing. Food for thought. There you go.